Margaret knelt beside the gravestone, her hands trembling as she placed a small bundle of white chrysanthemums on the grass. The autumn wind scattered golden leaves around her, but she barely noticed. Her 3-year-old daughter Emma clung to her waist, sensing her mother's sorrow, even if she couldn't understand it. "Mama, why are you sad?" Emma's small voice cut through the silence. Margaret wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Mama just misses someone very much." The inscription on the stone read, "Catherine Hayes, beloved wife and mother." Margaret traced the letters with her fingertips. Remembering a woman who had been kinder to her than anyone in her life, she didn't hear the footsteps approaching until a man's voice spoke softly behind her. "Excuse me, but that's my wife's grave. May I ask how you knew Catherine?" Margaret turned quickly, startling Emma. The man standing there was in his late 50s, well-dressed in a charcoal suit, holding his own bouquet of white flowers. His silver hair caught the afternoon light, and despite his obvious wealth, his eyes held a deep sadness that matched her own. "I'm sorry," Margaret stammered, standing up awkwardly. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to pay my respects." The man, whose name was Richard Hayes, studied her face with curiosity rather than anger. "You're not intruding. I'm just surprised to see someone else here." Catherine didn't have many visitors toward the end. "How did you know her?" Margaret hesitated. The story felt too personal, too raw, but something in Richard's gentle expression made her want to speak. "Your wife saved my life," she said simply. 2 years ago, I was at my lowest point. I'd just left an abusive relationship with Emma's father. We had nowhere to go, no money, nothing. I was sitting on a bench in the park, trying to figure out how I'd feed my daughter that night. Richard listened intently, and Margaret continued. "Mrs. Hayes," she sat down next to me. I don't know how she knew, but she just knew something was wrong. She asked if I was okay, and I broke down. I told her everything. Instead of walking away like most people would, she took us to a cafe, bought us dinner, and listened to our story for hours. Emma tugged at her mother's coat, growing restless. Margaret picked her up, settling the child on her hip. That wasn't all. Margaret's voice grew thick with emotion. She helped me find a job at a small bakery. She connected me with a women's shelter that had space. She even helped me get into a training program so I could build a real career. Every few weeks, she'd check on us, bring Emma little gifts, encourage me when I felt like giving up. "Hey." Richard's eyes glistened. "That sounds exactly like Catherine. She had a way of seeing people others overlooked." "I wanted to visit her when I heard she was sick," Margaret said, her voice breaking. "But by the time I found out, it was too late. I never got to thank her properly. I never got to tell her that because of her kindness, Emma and I have a small apartment now. I have a steady job. We're building a real life." Richard was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "Do you walk with me for a moment?" They strolled along the cemetery path, Emma now walking between them, occasionally picking up colorful leaves. Richard began to share his own story. "Catherine and I were married for 32 years. We built a successful business together, accumulated more wealth than we ever needed. But we couldn't have children. It broke Catherine's heart. In her last years, she devoted herself to helping others, especially young mothers and children. She never told me about most of the people she helped. She said it wasn't about recognition." He paused at a bench and gestured for them to sit. "After she passed, I discovered journals she'd kept. Pages and pages of stories about people she'd met and helped. I realized I'd been so focused on building our empire that I'd missed seeing the empire of kindness she was building alongside it." Margaret listened, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I've been trying to honor her memory by continuing what she started," Richard continued. "But I've been doing it all wrong, writing checks to charities, attending galas. That's not what Catherine did. She connected with people, person to person, heart to heart." He looked at Margaret directly. "Meeting you today, hearing how my wife touched your life, this means more to me than you could know. You've given me a gift showing me the real impact of her kindness." Emma had grown tired and climbed into Margaret's lap. Richard smiled at the little girl. "Catherine would have loved her," said softly. Margaret felt tears streaming down her face now, no longer trying to hide them. I wish Emma could have known her better. I wish I could have done more to repay her. You're repaying her, Richard said. By living well, by raising your daughter with love, by not giving up. That's exactly what Catherine hoped for. She didn't help people so they'd owe her. She helped because she believed everyone deserves a chance at happiness. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the autumn sun paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Finally, Richard stood. Margaret, I'd like to stay in touch, if you're comfortable with that. Not because I want to play benefactor or patron, but because I think Catherine would have wanted us to know each other, and honestly, I could use a reminder of what real kindness looks like. Margaret nodded, pulling out a worn piece of paper to write down her phone number. I'd like that. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Richard, please. As they walked back toward Catherine's grave, Richard added, You know, Catherine always said that kindness creates ripples we never see. She plants seeds and trusts they'll grow. Today I finally understand what she meant. They placed their flowers together on the grave, a beautiful mixture of white chrysanthemums and lilies. Emma reached out her small hand and gently patted the gravestone, as if saying goodbye to someone she'd only known through her mother's love. Thank you, Mrs. Hayes, Margaret whispered, for everything. As they parted ways, Richard heading to his car and Margaret walking toward the bus stop with Emma, both felt something shift inside them. The grief was still there, but it was mixed now with gratitude, with connection. With hope 3 months later, Margaret received a call from Richard. He'd established a foundation in Catherine's name, but not the kind that operated from boardrooms. It would provide direct personal support to women and children in crisis, matching them with mentors, resources, and most importantly, human connection. He wanted Margaret to help run it. Using her own experience to guide others through similar struggles, Catherine always said the best helpers are those who've needed help themselves, Richard explained. They understand that people don't just need money or resources. They need someone to see them, to believe in them. Margaret accepted, knowing that this was how the ripples continued, how one woman's kindness could multiply and spread far beyond her lifetime, every week. Margaret still visited Catherine's grave, now often accompanied by Richard. They'd share stories about the people they'd helped, the lives that were changing, the hope that was spreading, and Emma, growing older now, began to understand that the flowers they brought weren't just for remembering sadness. They were celebrating a life that continued to bloom in the hearts of everyone. Catherine had touched. The white chrysanthemums became their symbol, a reminder that even in the coldest seasons, beauty and kindness can flourish. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the quiet heroes among us. Leave a comment below and tell us about someone whose kindness changed your life. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it today.